everybody on your own screens and welcome our honored guests. I would like to welcome our 4 analyst relation rock stars, which are our honored guests in today's continuation of the earlier conversation about great analyst relations. It was so much vivid live discussion and exchange of ideas that we had to do a da capo of that first event. I would like to welcome Trish Harman. She's working today for SAP for over 16 years in different roles. And before joining SAP, she worked for Business Objects and First Logic. Welcome to our show, Trish.
Happy to be here.
Now, next in line is Sarita. Sarita Kincaid is working today for SugarCRM. Film stations in her business life have been Cisco, Huawei, and Oracle. She is an IIAR member and has named Analyst Relation Professional of the Year 2022. Welcome, Sarita.
Glad to be here.
And congratulations again.
Thank you.
Although it's almost over half a year ago.
Well, it is something to earn that award and that recognition, and that is what we are happy for you, and you may be still very proud to gain that award. It's hard work, and it is recognition for hard work.
Thank you.
Ludovic Leforestier, our male representative of Analyst Relations in that round, is working for multiple clients as founder and board member of Starsight Communications, and he is co-founder of the IIAR. Interesting to remember, because I got, in researching a bit, I found on one of the first introductions and letters as being an analyst or in the analyst relations community to join in. Before that, he had several roles in the business life at IBM, Oracle, Bearing Point, and Criteo before founding Starsight Communications in 2021. So now 2 years of entrepreneurship in a very special kind and in tough times. Welcome, Ludovic.
Thank you.
Great
to be here.
Being with us. Last but not least, our dear Sandra Lowe. She's working for Zoho. Before joining Zoho, she has led corporate communications for different organizations like Adobe, Salesforce, Financial Force, and Xero. Now, having said that, having welcomed you, it is, as I said, with the bottom of my heart, we are very grateful to have you as busy women or a busy man again on our stage. And you are our rock stars, definitely. And with each of you, we have our little stories of positive enlightenment, and you make it happen that we see behind the curtains. And for this, it's we are very happy to have you at lowering or opening the curtains for us. Now I would like to hand over to my dear friend Marshall, as he has the role today to be the section captain. And he is, what is his specialty when he is sometimes a bit more silent? He is the man who looks for the clock. So he will be our time guardian instead of though or this. He is the man. Yeah.
So I'll be running my stopwatch to keep everything well lined up. I mean, let's face it, there are a lot of smart people in this room. And for the topic, we could spend hours and never finish. Oh, and Brent Leary's watching. What a guy. Hi, Brent.
And it looks like we made something wrong in this
Oh
section
no,
of the panel.
the Seahawks. Oh.
Seahawks is perfectly fine.
Exactly. Thank you. Oh no.
Brent, if you've got someone in mind,
if I would get one of my inherited base caps from American baseball clubs, I would get him jumping through the screens, because they are neither one of his favorites or Paul's favorites. So I step back. Marshall, again, you.
Okay.
Sorry.
Certainly. Well, we are eating up time as we have fun with this, so let's dive right into the first question I wanted to ask you folks, which is how can analyst relations shape the public narrative of a vendor's values and operations? Nice, easy question to start with.
You going to call on someone, Marshall?
I was expecting you all to jump in at once.
Yeah.
Tell you what, we'll start
We're
with
too polite.
Ludo.
Oh, well, ladies first, I was going to say.
Yeah, but it's all ladies. You might never get a chance.
I think it's a really interesting question, because very often I find a great way to tell if you're doing good AR or bad AR, or if the AR maturity in your company is high enough. When you're doing good AR and or you have good stakeholder or clients, you can be insights driven. You start by asking the analyst questions. You start by asking them feedback about positioning, getting their point of view. And I find people who take that very defensively, or people who embrace that feedback, there's a very big spectrum between those, and that tells a lot about how can analysts make the most profound impact, and yes, the least measurable impact. So that's where I would lead you. So when you're doing great AR, you use analyst feedback to shape your narrative, to support storytelling, to impact your values, and to change how you run your business. You don't always get there. I don't know what my peers would think about it.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sarita.
Oh, okay.
Ludovic, we told you we were going to all jump in, so you wouldn't get to say anything. Go ahead, Sarita.
Oh, thank you. I would agree what Ludovic said about AR maturity. And so part of it is the maturity in your company, but it's also the company allowing, or you earning your seat. And I hate saying this because it's been used so much, but the seat at the table. Have you earned it? Have you brought it over time? So that's the AR maturity and having a strong program. And then Ludovic also touched on learn side analyst relations, where you bring the insights in from the analysts to help your business, right? So how open is your business? And like Ludovic said, some are not open. So the role that AR has is to help pave the way for that. So I do think that, I've had some good experiences, we can talk about them later, with that, but you really have to have an organization that is open to it.
So from my perspective,
go ahead, Sandra.
Well, before I get into that, so Marshall, when you opened up as our captain, you made it sound like this wasn't going to be fun. We were spending too much fun and losing time. But if the first session that we did was of any indication, this is going to be a pretty wild and fun discussion nonetheless. But obviously. So to Sarita's point, and also Ludovic's point, absolutely agree. I think from my perspective, I actually feel that analyst relations is a very critical part for any company to understand the industry state of mind. And it gives us as a company, as leaders, to have the ability to plan alongside that state of mind. I think AR, at least from my perspective in my current position, it really helps our company adapt to the ebbs and flows. It helps make sense of the ups and downs in the industry. And you guys will understand this. It helps us not lose sight of who we are and what's most critical for our company, despite all the outside noises. It really keeps us centered. And being centered is a critical part of our narrative. Helps us find that balance between hype and value. Trends versus reality, and then marketing versus actual ROI for our customers. So, it's very intrinsically integrated to, AR being part of that narrative, and having these analysts come in as our sounding board to help assess our strategy.
Well said. Well said. All right. Moving on. Unless Trish, there's something you wanted to add. No, didn't think so. You're muted, by the way.
You
Let's
probably.
fix that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good. I just want to allow time for all of us.
So do I. That's. I mean, I'm a little nervous as the timekeeper because I need to make sure you all get enough time. Any of the four of you could sustain the entire episode. So having all of you at once, want to make sure we move it, but don't feel nervous about it. Let's have a conversation. We're here to have fun. We're here to provide information and value to our audience, and they're not getting that from listening to me. So
Come on, Marshall. Come
Oh
on.
man.
And we've got a comment as well
Yeah,
too,
what
from
do you-
Joshua.
What do you think about that?
It's a good one. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's a good point from Joshua. I mean, that we as Analyst Relations agency, I said that last time, we're a bit like a dating agency. We put people together,
Mm.
and then people need to earn the right to speak sometimes. It's not because you're analyst that you get the right to speak. And I wanted to turn the question back to probably my peers and say, do you feel, because I've been in both situations, especially when I worked in consulting companies, I felt that consultants, they need to know everything because it's their job. They need to project an image that is reassuring to everyone. And sometimes they feel that analysts don't say anything they don't already know. On the other hand, I find some great, for instance, CEOs who felt that analysts were really, really thought-provoking and were really taking on the coaching. How do you manage and bring people from one end to another, or where do you feel you are? Or any comments on that?
I've got one comment. I had a really good experience working with the CTO earlier on in my career, and he did really know the market, and his team knew the market better than the analysts that we were working with, especially at one of the large firms that was covering us quite a bit. And it was quite an experience trying to convince him to like, hey, listen to what they have to say, because even if you don't think that the analyst can teach you something right now, they might be able to in a year or in 6 months or maybe next week, but they do have their ear to the ground about the customer. They're hearing from the customer. And so it's so important, even if you feel that the analyst may not have the technical chops or the specialty that you're looking at and that you're working in, they do hear from customers and they do talk to a lot of customers. So that started the path with that CTO. And to this day, he's worked at 3 other companies. That analyst has followed him and worked with him through all the companies, and subsequently given them really good ratings in research, which of course they earned, but brought them into deals and into conversations and into speaking ops. So it's a matter of bringing up the relationship and finding the something there that can start it, a kernel.
I also think sometimes it takes more than one interaction, right? Sometimes, we all have on or off days, and I think we need to make sure we're giving not only people we partner with in the business, but also our analysts an opportunity to maybe engage a second time, because sometimes we know both sides, right, as the AR pros, and we may see, oh gosh, that analyst was really off today, or my internal person just wasn't feeling it today. So I think I've learned that over my career is like, just stick with me. Let's try this again. Let's maybe come at it from a different angle. Maybe we change the topic slightly or ask the same question in a different way, just to kind of allow that relationship to simmer a little bit. And I think sometimes, because there's been cases in my career, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate that person, whether it's the analyst or the internal person. I'll never talk with them again. And it's like, no, wait a minute. Let's come back to neutral on both sides, right? So I think it's not a one and done for me, I think, which is why, we're called Analyst Relations, right? Sometimes relationships ebb and flow and change. So we have to be here kind of for the duration, I think.
And patience is key in our profession and sort of metric for success. It takes progress, and that takes time, and that's patience in terms of helping your internal teams understand their value, patience in terms of allowing them to feel comfortable to be a little more vulnerable, and then also patience, like Trish said, in terms of letting the analysts themselves feel that they understand your problem and the leadership enough to really offer valuable insight too. So patience, it's like, yep, I'm sure we all know the type of patience it does take behind the scenes.
We are always like everybody, human beings. We have our minutes and we have our good times, and we can be a pain in the neck. And on the other side, we can deliver honest value, honest talk. And this is what I love when, as an analyst, I drop by and get the opportunity with either of your organizations or Ludovic as the matchmaker for plenty customers in the multi-client situation, that we hear customers' voices. And this is what you enable for us. That is extremely valuable.
Yeah, it's much easier for us to do our jobs because you exist. It really
Thank you, Marshall. Very kind.
They didn't call us gatekeepers. Yay.
Yeah, right.
No, not at all. As an analyst, I've always looked at AR people as not gatekeepers, but what would be a better word for that? Door openers.
Mm-hmm.
You are not keeping us out, you are letting us in. And that certainly, it makes a difference. We can do our research without you, but we're only going to get so far. Having an open and understanding person on the inside does a lot to get us there. And John Reed is absolutely right that we have some of the best in the business on this call.
Praise to you guys.
Yeah, what about the rest of it?
Yeah.
Oh, it disappeared.
It did. And I saw that Brent had a question popped up.
Yeah.
We've got a couple. I'll go with Brent.
Brent had a couple. Yeah.
So
this is probably also a good lead.
I'm asking for a friend.
Yeah. That is a good lead into
I have a clue for which friend.
Yeah, I wonder. It's a good lead into the second question we had, which are, well, you've worked for large firms, you've worked for small firms. And you've had to deal with large and small analysts as well. How are big analyst firms and small ones of different value for a vendor? And okay, I think we'll go with, we don't have any volunteers, so I'm going to hit Trish with this one. Oh, but then you volunteered. Gosh darn it. Okay, Sandy, go ahead.
Well, I feel that, both, large and small, anyone in between, they all have their roles in influencing buyers and advising clients on direction, roadmap, messaging. I mean, they all have their roles. I feel that, this is my personal opinion, a lot of the larger firms, I feel like they have very rigid definitions, and sometimes rigidity is good. I mean, you need definitions so people understand what exactly is a certain segment. What does that consist of? Is it by revenue? Is it by number of employees? And also I feel that, a lot of the larger firms, at least in my opinion, they focus a lot on technology categories and a lot of times, individual features, where I feel like the mid-sized and smaller firms or independent influencers really try to focus from the customer perspective, decision maker's perspective, decision maker personas. And that, at least in my current role, it helps me significantly. Again, I want to go back to both have their roles. Both are critical in, keeping us successful in terms of getting that market awareness and influencing buyers. But, I feel like right now, with the next 5 years, the definition, or at least I guess the generations are changing in terms of who are the decision makers. And I think that fluidity is going to be key, meaning a lot of platforms versus silos, and just understanding what different decision makers are thinking about versus by category, what is, I think, the way of the future, and also what makes these firms of different sizes so different now.
I think also sometimes, depending on what my goals are for my plan for the quarter or the half are. It may depend on who I tend to focus on more, and really what I'm trying to accomplish. So I think to me they're all valuable. It's just a matter of when I need to tap into different levels of expertise and what I'm trying to accomplish. Sometimes I may need the exposure if I'm launching a new product, or something like that, where I will dig into some of the smaller, more focused analyst firms, versus if I'm in the middle of a huge evaluative report, I may spend a little bit more time with one of the bigger firms. So I think sometimes it really depends on where I'm at in the program. But I do firmly believe the perspective that I get from both large and small brings value to my company.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree very much, Trish. And I would also add to what you say that it also depends on what your marketing team, especially in smaller companies, is gold on. So if they want to drive web traffic, I have a client who likes reprints from a very, very, very large analyst firm because it drives traffic. It's very objective metric, but not all clients are gaming for clicks. And B, you might want to do sales enablement or drive a conversation rather than purely web traffic. It depends.
What
I
customers, excuse me, what customers are focusing and running for is truth, benefit,
Mhm.
and something they can use, not nice, sexy write-ups.
Yeah. I would say that I agree with everyone else that each has its own place in any AR program. I do think at bigger AR programs, at bigger enterprises, working with the big firms covers a lot of ground. So it covers your research. You can speak at their events because you can afford to. You can attend them and do things there, meet buyers there. There's a lot of user shortlisting and that type of thing that happens, at big firms, at smaller firms as well. But working at a smaller company, I'm finding that the smaller firms tend to really help quite a bit because they are moving faster. I think Sandra just referred to this with the changing buyers, right? Moving from hardware to software, the buyers are getting younger, we're getting older. But the smaller firms are able to be more nimble. They rely on social and blogging and other things that some of the bigger firms are more restricted to doing. So I find that they're great for go-to-market and also for competitive intelligence. They're really going to tell you the truth about your product. They don't have to hold back like the big firms have to be very careful about what they can say. So I found a lot of value from having candid conversations with the smaller analyst firms. And I see the sign, the time sign there.
And Sarita, I work for a fairly big company, and I think it's the same. I have the same feelings. I think many of my colleagues would agree as well that it's probably not relegated to small company versus big company. I think it's consistent.
I think it depends really on and then who said that? Is it John Reed or Brent who say how you ultimately helping the client? And there are firms who write for very conservative buyers with outdated categories that may favor some vendors or may appeal to some buyers. Sorry, it was John Reed, yeah. And sometimes you actually need to shake a bit the coconut tree and see what category or what new technology is going to shake down. The whole discussion around generative AI has been really interesting to see who was picking up the right thing. So you had very conservative firms who say, oh, you need to take an inventory, make stock, look at best practices, sit down, do nothing, and look. And we'll tell you in a few years. And you had some really good analysts saying, listen, this is what the Microsoft and OpenAI deal means, and being very on it, very, very quick. It's really interesting. So I you know Ralph, you mentioned the truth, but the truth is in the eye of the beholder. Market moving fast. What's the truth?
What is it?
An objectivated, subjective opinion, such as you have to hear to several individuals and then get a mix in between that can sometimes be part of the truth. I do not own the truth, unfortunately, and I have not the right crystal ball to see all trends. But what's the name of the game is that what we call since the old days the trusted advisor, such as what is our standing. And me being over 60 and having more than 20 years in that industry as experience, I have seen not only the light, but a lot of darkness. So when a customer wants an honest opinion, he gets one, if he can take it or not. Yeah. And this sometimes is not cool for several vendors because I am what I am. And I have my opinion on my lips and on my tongue. And this is sometimes why I cannot work for a larger company, because I do not fit to their compliance rules, or I cannot keep my mouth shut. Yeah.
On a particular side or specific topic towards value, so Tata Gata, I hope I did not butcher your name too much. If so, I apologize. Has quite an interesting question about about reports, analyst reports, their values and their KPIs and how they are created. So what are your approaches to that? How do you deal with this?
I can start. So right now I don't have specific KPIs, but I have in the past. And those have been around how many people downloaded the report and where did that go in the sales funnel. So those would be goals, and I track it. You know, how many downloads did we get each quarter? Where did that go? Did it result in anything? In terms of the process of identifying the reports, it's not too hard. It really depends on the size of your company, how many great reports you have, how many great products, where you stand in the market, what you need to do, why you're licensing the report. But the reports themselves are pretty, at least in my experience, have been pretty easy to stand out. You know, there's something where your company's done well, or there's some really great competitive mention, or maybe you've done fairly well, but your closest competitor didn't in a landscape evaluation. And so it could be fodder for your sales team. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it tends to be, they tend to jump out at you.
I think bandwidth too. I don't know if you all run into that, but bandwidth of your stakeholders, if you have 5 reports going on at the same time, sometimes you have to prioritize where you spend your time. And, you know, because we all often forget that many of our stakeholders or partners have full-time jobs as well. You know, just responding to analyst stuff is not their only thing. So that's another thing for me. And then in terms of the KPIs, I personally never want to be KPI'd on a dot movement or something like that, because I'm not in control of that. So, you know, that immediately makes me bristle if that's, you know, it's been a long time since I've been KPI'd like that. Fortunately, I've had leaders that understand that. But I don't know if that's what you're talking about in terms of the KPIs in that way, but I think most of us in AR do not want to be KPI'd on placement of the reports. We don't control that. We manage it, shepherd it, can influence it, but ultimately it's not on us, in my opinion. So I feel very strongly about that. Very strongly about that. And like I said, I've been lucky to not.
Exactly.
It's a long education process.
Adding to what Trish said, I think that AR professionals really need to move away from this need to be measured on everything. And that ties to the fact that we all need to move away from this dependency on evaluation reports, write-ups. That is only one small part
of our jobs,
right? Of our jobs. And there's so much more and so many other ways we can be more strategic. So on KPIs, like Trish, I feel very fortunate that I am in an environment where not everything is measured by numbers. I think there's a lot of ways that the reports and ourselves that we make impact that you can't quite put in a number or track on a dashboard. Do the product teams track their leads, conversions, opportunities? Absolutely. And as AR professionals, we help them assess the situation, their gap, and we try to make decisions on the best reports or deliverable that can help them. And, you know, you kind of hope for the best. But, you know, it's a continuous role as advisors, you know, at least from my perspective, for all the various teams, as all the teams at Zoho are at different levels of maturity from an AR perspective, right? So, yeah, it's a lot more fluid than just putting KPIs. But I do appreciate the question because I have been in positions where that is absolutely critical because the board or someone up top make it absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes for us, I find like if I can get an analyst to change a word in a write-up or something, like, you know, nobody, like I'll call up one of my peers and be like, oh my gosh, I just got them to soften this. Like that's a huge win. But that you can't measure that, right? You know, that doesn't have a KPI behind it. But I know that I was successful because I convinced an analyst to like soften something or change something that they were writing about us. So I think those to me are, and you know, to Sandra's point, you can't measure that. So I think it's always a topic amongst AR folks is how do we measure our impact in the org, and it's hard.
But then it doesn't tell you how you as a vendor drive the conversation in the market either.
That brings us directly back to Brent's point. So the whole Gen AI topic has probably hit many of us quite flat-footed. So turning that not only analysts, but probably also businesses. So which then makes analyst relations, amongst other things, rather tactical and less strategic, reactive. So how did you deal with it? With that surprise that basically came up?
The biggest question that I get in my AR business is, how are the analysts using AI? Are they writing all these reports? Are they writing the blogs? Or are they doing the research? So, you know, in terms of other than, right, so, but we get asked that question a lot, and what's going to happen with that? So that's one thing. The other is right now for me, in terms of using AI, it's mostly as a time-saving tool. I'm exploring it for saving time, taking notes, helping to write a little bit, using a feature here or there, but I haven't come to any big conclusions, and it hasn't changed my program a ton yet.
Let's talk a little towards how you as analyst relations react to inquiries. How is SugarCRM, in your example, leveraging these tools? How is SAP leveraging? How is Zoho leveraging? So this is what the questions that are coming from analysts are probably about, not about how I am writing my reports. Well, I write them 10 fingers, and how this gets ingrained into valuable business functionality that helps customers.
Well, I can tell you that I'll be sharing that on my analyst summit coming up. We'll be unveiling it then. I don't want to pre-announce, and but yeah, we're excited about it. So
I think one of the things I've seen recently is it's been interesting. We rolled out a lot of AI news, and you know, the first question talked about, you know, the perceptions that analysts already have. And the interesting thing of that is, yes, everyone trusts SAP to do the right thing with our data because we have such a great reputation of doing that. So now I kind of look at it as my job from the AI side to make sure I'm taking those customer examples back to, so I'm reinforcing what the analysts think about how we'll manage that. So, you know, they're telling us, well, we're not worried about SAP being ethical in how they manage, you know, this AI data. So now my job, like I said, is to really make sure that I'm proving their thoughts, and you know, so that's really where I've seen AI come, and where I know that needs to be my role, you know, as an AR pro is solidifying what they're telling them and giving them proof points to back up what they're saying.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mistakenly thought you were talking about the ChatGPT type generative AI capabilities. So yeah, so Sugar has been incorporating AI into our product line for a while now, for a few years. So
yeah, this ChatGPT just brought the topic to the forefront of very, very many people.
Yes,
it dropped it into
it's
everybody's
just too
lap.
accessible. Yeah, it just dropped that into everybody's mind.
Yeah,
and from then on, of course, a reaction needs to happen. So, and how is that useful or not useful in a given business scenario or in a given application system? Then AR, I guess, turns a bit reactive, isn't it?
Unfortunately, I haven't found a way to get ChatGPT to create me a briefing deck.
Too bad. Too bad.
Coming
Then
soon.
you have found one of the limits, my friend, and such as still use your brain, your 10 fingers for the typing, and experimenting from toy to tool is a phases which I see in the last 3 months coming up, and that people try to find, is there some beef in for me, such as a time saver or in doing some researching, but not in the past, but going for the future or at least real time. And that is very interesting to see in the discussion from Professor or Dr. Michael Wu from PROS and from other people which are, from my liking, knowledgeable researchers and scientists looking into that. Yeah.
Well, what we're
by the way,
doing is
Ludovic, you are not the only one.
summarize the transcripts and stuff like that. It sort of is helpful.
Right. It's a time saver, but yeah.
But yeah, you still need, but then you can spend more time using your brain. And I think it's back to John Reed, is then how you can really help the client with trying to think, okay, what's the recommendation we then do?
Well, we've been talking around this next question for a little bit, so I'll introduce it even though we're already halfway through. What are your best practices in establishing and maintaining relations with analysts? You already have mentioned personal rapport and how important that can be. How do you deal with we're all different and arguably pretty weird. How do you deal with the variation? Anyone? Volunteers? Don't make me pick you.
Let's volunteer, Sandy.
It's a bit maybe.
Well, I raised my hand earlier, so I was like, okay, I better not. But, well, I love this question. And like you said, Marshall, we've been talking about it indirectly the last half an hour. So, I think that the analyst relation pros and the analyst relationships are really special. I mean, it is one that is built on mutual respect, mutual trust. And I think in many cases, my panelists here would agree that some of us are lucky enough to say even friendship. I would say that everybody probably agree that it's certainly not transactional. We mentioned that it's a process and there is progress and you need patience. And, it's not always about work. I feel that, we are all human beings first. I think it's also a matter of being respectful of someone's time and what is top of mind for them. If they need metrics, they need customers, if they need just periodic check-ins on how a certain product they had asked about maybe even a year ago is doing, it's up to us to make sure that we are responsive in the way that they prefer. So I mean, those are very basic things, but just a few things that come top of mind. But I do very much treasure the relationships I have built over the years. And to me, you guys are more than analysts, right?
Well, we try. And we enjoy working with you. It helps a lot, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Yep. You make me laugh.
Time? Is that time?
No, it's not time. No.
Oh, I saw it. Okay, I saw it.
No, we don't have a clock sign.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that one because I'm time captain. That is my friend Marshall.
Yeah. Well, we have drifted off of the plan 12 minutes per topic.
Safe.
In my mind, that's part of the goal. Questions are to start a discussion, not to
Yeah,
not to border it.
just to kind of echo what Sandra was saying, these are relationships that we bring from company to company to company. We'll have relationships with you guys our whole career, depending on what fields we are in. And so it's really that building of relationship. I would say curiosity is something also as you're thinking about building a new relationship with an analyst. What is it about them, not only as professionally, what they're covering, what the angle is, what they think, but also as a person. Where did they grow up? About their family? What do they love doing? What's interesting to them, and finding that intersection. So that's, obviously it's just relationship building. It really is. But it's really special. It's analyst relations is so different from other roles. I mean, look at the media role as, of course, the shrinking role of media, which is really unfortunate, but that brings some great analysts our way, I've found. But analyst relations is fantastic in that way. You get to carry these relationships for 15, 20 years or more. So,
how about events? Sorry, I need to interfere there because I think that's a pet peeve of all of us. And John is quite vocal in general. You all know that. What did we learn out of the past years?
Yeah. Oh, is this question relating back to the article?
No, this is not relating to the article. This is about best practice. So we're still in the best practice topic, and we are in general. I mean, analyst events, are they a best practice? Question mark.
This is a really good topic. John, I don't know if you would agree. He's never given me a letter grade, but at any of our events, I'm always I openly say, like, I read the John Reed Bible of events, and John has been very vocal, and I absorb it. I want that type of feedback. It's not just John. I mean, it's all of you guys too. Brand Paul, it's a lot of different folks, and Josh. I really want their feedback. What makes your time worthwhile? And I'm not saying I'm doing it right. I'm not saying that at all. But the whole over moderation of panels,
right?
No more. What is that? Death by PowerPoint, another John Reed term. No more. Open Q&A, not moderate. Let your leadership be up there and just be pounded with questions. I mean, there's some prep involved, but that is the type of conversation, honest conversations that we need to have with analysts, and analysts who are taking 2-3 days away from their personal, professional lives to talk with us. I'm still learning. I'm still trying. And every single survey that I send, I hope you guys know I read it. And then you'll probably hear me say the next time, based on your feedback, we made these changes. And it's so important. So, I see a lot of different comments coming in, some from personal conversations that I'm not going to get into, but I'll stop there. But I certainly want to create valuable content. And I know that definition continues to change, but it's something that I'm trying to do better and better. And it's no more death by PowerPoint. That was very 2000.
Yeah, I agree about the 2000. I think we moved from 1 hour slots to 40-minute slots to 20-minute slots, and I try to keep it under 20 minutes. And have more. The best events I've had were combining roundtable, a bit of demo floor, a bit of customers. It's all about setting a stage with a good story, and then leaving that to the conversation.
Yeah, for me, I agree on the death with PowerPoint. John, well taken, point well taken. Also about customers and then not overcoaching. First of all, having a lot of customers is super important, not just in your agenda, but also to mix with your analyst over the course of your event, and not to coach them, not to overcoach them at all. I mean, that's so obvious, and nobody walks away the better. Another interesting thing that I'm hearing, and it's obvious, and we've all done it, and we're probably all going to do a lot more of it, is the unstructured conversations. Yes, the Q&A that Sandra was referring to, but also just I was listening to an analyst webinar a couple weeks ago, and it was a review. Some of you may have been on that. Actually, Brent, I think it was yours. And analysts were giving a review of all the different events that they've been to, vendor events over the last 6 months. And they said, hey, you know, the best events, one of the comments was when you have open Q&A, when someone's just talking with you and not just at you. And this seems so obvious, but I think, you know, the AR programs have just been so structured in the past, and we really need to break out of that. So message heard, guys. We heard you.
Much appreciated.
May I
Question,
one
Ralph?
question, Marsha, such as, have you overcome the situation which I recall vividly even from the 90s and the 80s, when we had a one-on-one only together with a watchdog?
Oh,
I call it the watchdog situation, such as an open conversation between a C-level representative of the organizations was not possible. And this is something which has, to my understanding, changed.
yeah.
You still have this, or is that gone?
It's most, I mean, it depends on what the venue is. You know, it depends if it's an analyst relations event or what it is. But for the most part, it's gone. You know, sometimes if it's with the CEO and it's the first time that you're having an interaction, absolutely, there's going to be an AR person there. But as the relationship builds, that's not necessarily true. Also, think about this, you know, at an analyst summit, how many AR people are there? You just can't staff with all your C-levels. So don't worry. It's definitely changed.
And sometimes I think it's not necessarily being a watchdog. It's just making sure that there's not deliverables that were promised. And then, you know, you expect the executive promises you something, and then, you know, they go on their way. And then you call me back in 2 weeks and say, hey, so-and-so promised me this. And I'm like, I had no idea because I wasn't in the meeting. So a lot of times it's that type of stuff that I think people don't realize. We're not there to like shush our spokespeople. We're there to make sure that, you know, if there's deliverables or things that they've promised, you know, and then it also helps us continue that relationship, right? So we know what they spoke with you about the last time. So I don't always view me as a watchdog. I just am kind of a partner in there, making sure, you know, I know the information that was shared, and, you know, so the next time I prep so-and-so to speak with you, I know, hey, remember when we talked with them here, we talked about this. That is more my role versus being a watchdog. You know, if I'm dealing with the C-level, I don't think they need me to do that.
I appreciate very much, Trish, but don't get tough and jump on me, such as I placed it at Watchdog. I had a clear view, such as Wagner Ekstrom, where the guys which were normally watching us very carefully in some company from Redmond. And they made sure that the C-level
Amazon.
that the C-level representative was more in the shoo mode, that he did not over promise, but he wasn't himself, and that was really nervous. Yeah. So when they are open.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole subject of AR by PR agencies in which I probably shouldn't enter now, but I'm very much in there with higher. So it's really a question that you're asking. You're taking, first of all, on all those events, right? You're taking a lot of time and bandwidth away from execs. You're asking them to prep, to attend. So they take days of their schedule. So it's a very big ask. So you need to be in a position, as Trish said, you know, you need to be in a position to be there and make that request. And then secondly, again, still as Trish said, you're sitting an exec with analysts. Sometimes it's good to have someone setting the context, but more importantly, when the analyst asks a question to a senior exec, you realistically don't expect the CEO, the CTO, the C something to write everything up and then follow up. That's your job as an AR pro. So you're there to guide, facilitate, coach, follow up, do the admin and everything, but also set the scene up and say, hey, you know, but remember, you told me last time this, and that can help Thomas or Ralph or Marshall.
That brings Josh's comments right into the foreground again.
So it's right on.
where
Yeah.
how do you identify and how do you lead the execs into saying something that's actually useful, not not marketing fluff.
Yeah.
With no offense to the marketing people, we appreciate your fluff.
Says who? Okay. No, I probably get punished by Jody again.
Thomas, was your question about how do the AR professionals lead the teams creating the slides and delivering them to give something substantial?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm well aware of that event. I think I attended the same one, but
yeah. Well, I mean, you have to. First of all, you tell them. You don't. No,
well, well, we of course.
Yeah. No. Well,
you read in Josh's comment that he did. Yeah, I did too. So, but from an analyst relations point of view, how do you lead your execs into saying something more?
Well, you have to show them what's important to the analysts before the briefing, right? So these high-level slides, especially now with AI, back to that topic, a lot of that information can be sourced and found on the web. So you have to have a reason. You tell them there has to be a special reason for the analyst to spend time with you. And you have to tell them, this is this type of analyst. They're looking for this type of information. They talk to end users, or they're here to advise on our product or strategy to go to market. Whatever it might be. So you just have to set the stage, and then you have to be brutally honest and say, gosh, this is so high level. This is not going to be interesting. So you have to tell them, but you have to give them the reason why.
Or please don't share trends and
right.
Like please don't, because they're the ones who write the trends and know the trends.
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
I still see that all these years later, where people still don't understand. Like, you don't need to educate the analyst on the market. They know the market. They define the market. Let's focus on us.
Yeah. The hardest groups, I would say, in any company are generally the marketing teams, because their job is to market. So then they want to put the marketing fluff out for the most part, not every team, but they want to do that, right? So when you work with a product team, wow, a lot easier, because they're going to get down to it. They want to talk about differentiation. They want to talk about how the customer use something. So just a matter of education from the AR person.
And focusing on the value you actually provide for your customers. Always bring it back to the people that you're building your products for. And it's tough. I mean, I find that the product people, like, okay, hope no one's listening, but it's always like, at least for me, it's like features. Oh my gosh, we got 100 features. I'm like, no. If no one's using it, if no one's benefiting from them, they mean nothing, and that's not valuable for us to shove down the analyst's throats. Let's have them first understand the value that we create for our customers. And this is also something, okay, John, I'm not trying to sing you praises, but you drilled that in my head long ago, and it continues to live in me. But anyways, yes. But yeah, that's sort of the filter, the first point of filter for us in creating, some of our slides. I mean, I think some teams do it better than others, in our company. And again, goes back to the whole long patient education process. How do you help, educate these teams to let go of wanting to go back to where they're most comfortable? Some is marketing speak, and some is would be features, right? So, but yeah, for us, it's really that customer value.
Well, we've
John's comment, yes, true. Tone.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked a lot about how AR provides value to analysts, and we thank you for the value you provide. But going the other way back up the chain, extending what we've been talking about just now, what is the value of AR in the strategic decision-making layer or crisis management? Trish,
I can take this one. I think actually, if we are doing our jobs as AR pros, we are helping lead the strategic decision process, right? And I think, if I focus on crisis management for a minute, I think a lot of times that's just making sure your analysts know what's going on, updating them, I just yesterday I had some news break and I beat it off before it hit anything, right? Because I needed my analysts to know, because they all know the rumors, they hear them, and I got responses back right away saying, hey, I heard some rumors, thanks for confirming, just things like that, where I think we have to remind our stakeholders oftentimes that analysts know more than we think they do many times, right? So I think that's a good reminder to our executives, if, and maybe it's limited, I don't know, but I think that's really important, is to make sure you're looping your stakeholders or your analyst in early. In terms of strategic decision, I always like to make sure, we're looping our analysts in early and often, right? I think it's really important to, a lot of times, over the years I've found in different roles where they want things fully baked, and the idea is fully baked and fully thought out, and, the product has to be ready to demo. And that's generally not when analysts want to be looped in. They want to be looped in early to talk about concept and why we're doing this, and they want to share their ideas on what they're hearing from our customers. So I think, that is often, it's gotten better, I think, as time has passed, but it was always a really hard sell early in my career, was trying to make sure it doesn't have to be a fully baked story. I actually, if it's a fully baked story, then I'm too late to the analyst. So I think that's where it leads to more strategic decisions, if I'm bringing the analyst in early.
I agree with that. And then just to take a different, just so I don't repeat, but I completely agree. I think that analysts are really important. The community is really important in crisis communications. Everyone looks to PR when there's a crisis. Analysts are so important. And I have a good example of this. I was working for a large multinational foreign held company, and we got a extremely negative, explosive story on a U.S. national news magazine story. And it was really devastating. It was a surprise to us all. I was able to immediately go out to all my analysts and just ask them, what do you think? Do you think this is true? Here's what's going on. Here's what I know right now. And then, if you were to be called by the press, what would you say? And I was able to get a good list of either neutral or slightly warm analysts, which we turned over to media relations. So I would just say analysts are so important in crisis communications. They really are.
Analysts' eyes and ears are on the ground. I mean, you guys go to so many events, I can't even count. So for any corporate communications, any crisis communications teams to not consult with analysts is really a huge loss. And coming back to decision making and analyst relations, I mean, from my perspective, our convictions as a company and values is very much connected to analyst relations. We do not treat them separately, and how analysts see us or how we present ourselves to analysts as a company is who we are. So we trust the analyst feedback. We're not afraid to be humble, to be vulnerable, and we really do try to absorb what you guys tell us. And we have that humility, and we know that criticisms are part of our growth. So in that sense, I'm very fortunate to work in an environment where analyst relations is very much valued at all levels of the company, and that you guys are all very much valued relationship and assets for us. So very critical part of all decision making.
The
the whole point about the crisis thing as well, I wanted to add to what you guys say. I think it's really key to cultivate a broad set of analysts. And I have a company in mind which Sarita knows well as well, and I'll leave it there, where we focused on a very narrow setting of influencers with extremely good results. When the market turns less positive towards that vendor, then we found ourselves without friends, and it was really difficult to manage crisis. And this is where I think having a broad set of analysts with a diverse point of view help you drive the right conversation, or the conversation you want in the marketplace.
Danke, Ludovic. Because when the shit is hitting the fan, then you need some honest voices and some trusted, reliable voices such
Yeah.
as if somebody from Handelsblatt or Wirtschaftswoche is calling up,
Yeah.
that you give him your honest evaluation of the situation and not the
Yeah.
hype drama. Yeah,
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
In that context, Tatagata's questions is quite interesting as well. In how far does longevity with your company help them?
I personally
Or-
think just good AR is good AR. I switched, I've been at my current company for a long time, but I switched topics recently.
Mm.
And yes, there was a learning curve, but core AR, what we do, whether it's, company to company, topic to topic, I think I'm able to apply what I do regardless of the topic. And it was very, very much crystallized with me in the last 6 months, honestly, that it wasn't just because I knew the topic. I just know AR and I know how to do good AR. And I was able to take that with me in this new coverage area. So I don't know if I assume the rest of you agree with that statement that, it was like riding a bike to me,
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Especially, we discussed just now that the silos, the product silo, it's going to break apart. It already has. So your expertise within an area, yes, it's important, but not as critical as just knowing the fundamentals on how AR works and how to set expectations with your external and internal stakeholders. So absolutely agree.
And being vulnerable, what I wanted to say is such as from Brené Brown. I have been taught by my sons to read Brené Brown's books, and they become very important to me because being vulnerable can be a strength as well. Be humble, learn again to listen and to be empathic. Yeah, and good learning.
Being good human beings, right?
Yep. That's a great way to wrap. Hard to beat that.
Not yet, Trish.
Oh, no.
There is no way. I mean, we are over time, and I highly appreciate your time and the valuable input that this discussion was just great. Still, there's one unanswered question that I'd like to ask all of you as my famous last words question to you. Brent asks it, the tough one. How about current movies?
I watch both in 1 week, and I love both in different ways. They're both wonderful. Go watch it. I rank Oppenheimer over Barbie, and then anyone cares about Mission Impossible, that's my third. I've never done this before in my life. 3 movies in 1 week, guys. Okay, so that's it from Sandy.
Sarita.
Haven't seen either, so been busy working. I'm looking forward to Oppenheimer, though. Yeah.
So as a Gen Xer that played with Barbies my whole childhood, I giggled through the whole movie and cried. I loved it. And I got to see it. I took my
Trish,
girls,
I
so it was fun.
I totally teared up.
I laughed and cried. It was
beautiful,
great.
right?
Yep.
No Oppenheimer yet.
I'm looking forward to both of them.
So Ludovic,
I haven't seen them yet.
On the films.
I haven't seen it neither yet, so I haven't had time.
So I owe you an answer. I won't go for Barbie. I didn't play with Ken or Barbie. I had 3 sons, so if there would be a toy film, something like Transformers is more
G.I.
Joe. But I'm curious on Oppenheimer, and I agree with Sandy. I need to go for Mission Impossible. Not that I'm a big fan of Tom Cruise, but I like the storytelling and I like the technology and I like the CGI. And they use AI in a pattern where it is thrilling me. Yeah.
Yeah. Last but not least, I haven't seen any of the 3, and I'll probably wait till they're available on plane. On a plane.
You're gonna have plenty of trips that you'll get to watch these. But I do want to say, I just have to say that Barbie is not just for girls who have played with the dolls. It transcends gender stereotypes. So I just want to put that out there.
Yes.
Brent's
you
going to
very
be
much.
paying me
Well,
later.
there's a Ken involved after all.
There's
yeah,
lots of Kens involved.
don't be a
I
Ken,
am
but yeah.
listening, Sandy. I am listening, and I will make my pitch.
We do a watch
Okay.
party.
Well, them two girls, we made a point of buying them Legos before Barbies.
And did they
Yeah,
become
you
engineers?
know, I think it's gender stereotypes are something.
Hmm.
So our girls played with
So-
Lego much more than Barbie.
Well, that
So-
I think brings us into a comfortable landing.
Yes. Thanks a lot
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
to
you.
everyone.
everybody
for having
who
us.
was
Thank you.
for you and
That's,
This is fun. Like
to
I
the
said,
great
this-
guys in the audience as well.
they loaded us with enough
Yeah.
questions that we can
It's
do
great.
part 3.
We didn't even need to prepare anything with those guys. Okay,
Clear your
so-
schedules for the next one.
Yep. Let's
Thanks,
go
everyone.
See
backstage.
you guys.
Bye.
Good to see you
Good
all.
discussion.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Take care.